Imagine living without a refrigerator. Kind of terrifying, right? For most of us, that's unthinkable. We depend on it for everything, from leftovers to frozen meals and midnight snacks. But for centuries, the Japanese have done just fine without one. They've mastered the art of preserving meat through natural methods that blend science, patience, and a deep respect for nature. And believe it or not, their techniques don't just keep food edible, they make it taste even better. In a world obsessed with modern convenience, Japan stands out for its ancient, sustainable traditions. No electric coolers, no plastic containers, just salt, smoke, air, rice, and time. These time-honored practices, some dating back over 1,000 years, prove that innovation doesn't always mean technology. The Japanese don't fight nature. They work with it. And when it comes to preserving meat, their wisdom is nothing short of extraordinary. I'll admit, the first time I tried traditionally salted Japanese fish, I was skeptical. No fridge? Really? But the taste completely surprised me. Rich, savory, and lasting longer than anything I'd ever stored in my refrigerator. If you're imagining that meat or fish preserved without refrigeration must taste dry or old, think again. The Japanese have perfected shiozuke, or salt preservation, turning a simple mineral into an art form passed down for generations. Salt has been Japan's oldest and most trusted preservative, used long before refrigeration was ever possible. From coastal villages to mountain homes, families learned that when it comes to keeping food safe, salt is both protector and flavor maker. The method is simple but precise. Cuts of meat or fish are coated generously with salt, drawing out moisture, the #1 enemy of freshness. By reducing water content, shiozuke prevents bacteria from thriving, keeping the food safe for weeks or even months. It's not just about tossing on a handful of salt and walking away. There's rhythm, care, and intention involved. The Japanese select their cuts carefully, then layer salt with remarkable precision, sometimes mixing in rice bran, miso, or sake leaves for extra flavor and protection. Each household has its own variation, its own secret balance of ingredients that gives their preserved food a unique signature. You could say shiozuke is like a spa treatment for food, gentle but transformative. The salt not only protects but enhances, concentrating the natural umami and giving meats or fish a clean, satisfying depth of flavor. Here's a fun bit of trivia. In old Japan, salt wasn't just a cooking ingredient. It was sacred. It symbolized purity and protection, used in rituals and even sprinkled at doorways to ward off bad spirits. The same reverence extended to food preservation, turning necessity into tradition and tradition into flavor. When I first watched the shiozuke process in action, I thought, there's no way this can taste fresh after a month. But I was wrong. The result wasn't just edible, it was astonishing. Each bite had layers of savoriness and subtle sweetness that no modern refrigerator could replicate. The beauty of shiozuke lies in its simplicity and wisdom. While we rush to store everything cold, the Japanese let salt and time do the work. The result? A method as practical as it is poetic, and proof that sometimes the oldest solutions are still the best. However, relying solely on salt isn't quite enough to ensure meat's longevity, especially in Japan's humid summers or during long storage. The Japanese understood this centuries ago and developed an ingenious extra layer of protection, misozuke, or miso curing. When it comes to preserving meat, miso is a quiet powerhouse. It does more than just add that deep, savory umami flavor we all love. It also acts as a natural preservative, sealing in freshness while enhancing taste. The Japanese have perfected this method using miso's complex fermentation to both preserve and transform. Walk into a traditional kitchen, and you'll likely find jars of meat or fish nestled under a blanket of miso paste, a sight as comforting as it is practical. The process isn't just about coating meat for flavor. Miso creates a microenvironment where harmful bacteria can't thrive. Its salt content draws out moisture, while the enzymes in the fermented soybeans slowly tenderize the meat, enriching its taste and texture. Interestingly, miso curing can extend the shelf life of meat for weeks, and in cool, dry conditions, even longer. The flavor deepens over time, becoming richer and more complex. Imagine opening a jar months later and finding perfectly aged meat infused with that nutty, slightly sweet aroma only miso can create. I once tried miso curing chicken at home, thinking it would be a quick experiment. Let's just say my kitchen smelled so good, my neighbors came over thinking I'd started a new restaurant. They left disappointed, but I ended up with some of the most tender chicken I'd ever tasted. In Japanese homes, though, misozuke is treated with the same reverence as fine art. Each family has its preferred type of miso: white or shiro miso for mild sweetness, red or aka miso for bold depth, or a blend of both for perfect balance. Every detail counts: the thickness of the coating, the curing time, even the vessel used for storage. This isn't just about preserving food, it's about preserving harmony between nature and a flavor. Miso curing embodies the patience, skill, and quiet respect that define Japanese craftsmanship, turning preservation into poetry, one jar at a time. You'd think that after perfecting miso curing, the Japanese would stop there. However, they're practical people and understand that sometimes not everyone has a crock of miso fermenting in the pantry. There are times when a faster, more adaptable method is needed to preserve food while still bringing out that signature Japanese depth of flavor. That's where shoyuzuke, or soy sauce curing, enters the picture. This clever method adds a rich, savory touch to preservation and offers an alternative that's as flavorful as it is functional. While miso brings fermentation and salt delivers dryness, soy sauce provides the perfect middle ground, a blend of salinity, sweetness, and umami that protects food and enhances its taste at the same time. The process itself is simple, yet incredibly effective. Cuts of meat or fish are marinated or brushed with a mixture of soy sauce, mirin, and sometimes sake or sugar. The soy sauce's natural salt content pulls moisture from the surface, while its amino acids break down proteins, tenderizing the meat. Over time, this not only prevents spoilage, but creates a deep, almost caramelized flavor that makes every bite unforgettable. It's the culinary equivalent of a velvet coat, sealing in what's good while keeping everything else out. You could think of shoyuzuke as the Japanese cousin to sugar curing, the same idea of balance, but with that unmistakable hit of umami. The first time I tasted soy-cured fish, I thought it had just been freshly grilled. The flavor was bright, rich, and clean, the kind of taste that lingers long after you're done eating. That's the power of shoyuzuke. It doesn't just preserve food, it transforms it. Historically, this method dates back to the Edo period, when merchants and travelers needed reliable ways to store meat and fish without refrigeration. Each region developed its own variation, using darker, bolder soy in the west and lighter, sweeter blends in the east. Families passed recipes down like heirlooms, each one fine-tuned to local tastes. Too much soy makes the meat heavy and salty, too little, and it spoils. But when done just right, shoyuzuke delivers that perfect balance. Meat that's flavorful, safe, and satisfying, lasting weeks without ever seeing a fridge. When it comes to preservation, the Japanese bring out another timeless powerhouse, the sun itself. This ancient technique, known as himeno, transforms fresh meat and fish into long-lasting, flavor-packed delicacies without relying on refrigeration or modern machinery. The process may sound simple, but it's a blend of patience, precision, and a deep respect for nature's rhythm. The Japanese often turn to himeno to preserve items like mackerel, squid, or even wild game, giving them a unique flavor that deepens as they dry. Sun-drying isn't just about extending shelf life, it's about unlocking taste. The gentle warmth of the sun pulls moisture from the meat while concentrating its natural umami, leaving behind a chewy, savory bite that can last for weeks. The process is straightforward, yet artful. Freshly cleaned meat or fish is lightly salted to draw out excess moisture and discourage bacteria. It's then laid out on bamboo racks where sunlight and ocean breezes work in harmony to dry it evenly. Each day, the pieces are carefully turned and monitored, ensuring the perfect texture, firm yet tender. My grandfather used to tell stories of drying fish along the coast during the summer months. He said the trick wasn't just in timing, but in intuition, knowing when the air was too humid or when a clouded day would spoil the batch. One season, a mischievous cat managed to steal half a tray of drying sardines, and he swore it was the best-fed cat in the prefecture. What's fascinating about himeno is how adaptable it is. Depending on the region, you'll find variations that include different salts, marinades, or drying durations. Coastal villages prefer shorter drying times for softer textures, while inland areas might extend the process for a firmer, jerky-like finish. Historically, this practice dates back centuries, when fishermen relied on the sun to preserve their delicatessindred. Even today, himeno remains a staple in Japanese markets and kitchens, proof that some of the simplest ideas truly stand the test of time. The beauty of himeno lies in its simplicity and purity. It's a method that not only preserves, but enriches the flavor of meat and fish, capturing the essence of sunlight in every bite. Fermented brine drying might sound like a forgotten relic of coastal Japan, but for island communities, it's a practice steeped in patience, tradition, and deep respect for the ocean's gifts. This age-old method involves soaking fish in a special fermented brine, a salty, aromatic liquid that's been reused, refreshed, and carefully tended for decades before setting it out to dry under the gentle warmth of the sun. But here's where the real magic happens. The brine itself isn't just a seasoning, it's alive. Over years of use, it matures like a fine miso or aged sake, developing layers of complex flavor that slowly sink into every cut of fish. Once dried, the meat transforms completely. It's chewy, yet tender, salty, yet subtly sweet, carrying the deep umami of the sea. The process is less about preservation alone and more about coaxing time itself into the flavor. By using this fermented brine, known as kusaya jiru, Japanese coastal families create a natural defense system against spoilage. The high salt content discourages harmful bacteria, while beneficial microbes help protect and flavor the meat at the same time. It's an incredible example of old-world science meeting intuition, proof that centuries before refrigeration, people had already mastered microbial harmony. Properly dried kusaya can last for months, remaining flavorful, safe, and rich with aroma. I'll admit, the first time I smelled kusaya, I thought something had gone terribly wrong in the kitchen. The scent is bold, to say the least, sharp, oceanic, and impossible to ignore. But locals insist that the stronger the aroma, the better the taste. And they're right. Once you take that first bite, all doubt fades away. The flavor is deep, smoky, and surprisingly delicate, like the essence of the sea captured in one mouthful. The process is simple but exacting. Fish, often mackerel, flying fish, or horse mackerel, is soaked in the brine for several hours, then carefully dried under sun and wind. Each family has its own brine, a living recipe passed down like a liquid heirloom. This isn't just food preservation, it's cultural preservation. Kusaya embodies the rhythm of island life, where patience, salt, and sunlight turn the ordinary into something extraordinary. In traditional Japanese kitchens, nothing goes to waste, and boil drying, known as niboshi, is a perfect example of that philosophy in action. These small dried fish, often anchovies or sardines, are not just for flavoring soup stock. They represent one of Japan's oldest and most effective methods for preserving seafood. Imagine stepping into a coastal village where the scent of the sea mingles with gentle steam rising from simmering pots. The process is simple, yet brilliant. Fish are first boiled to remove excess fat and bacteria, then carefully dried in the open air. The result? Lightweight, nutrient-rich fish that can last for months without refrigeration. It's nature's way of packaging protein, no plastic required. I once tried to make niboshi at home, thinking it would be a fun weekend experiment. Let's just say my kitchen smelled like the entire Pacific decided to move in. My neighbors were polite about it, but their faces told another story. Meanwhile, Japanese artisans have perfected this process with such precision that the aroma is not just tolerated, it's celebrated. The boiling step is more than just a preliminary cook, it's a critical part of preservation. The hot water removes surface oils and impurities, making it harder for bacteria to grow during drying. Once the fish are laid out to dry, the combination of heat, air, and time works together to create that signature umami-packed flavor. Each tiny fish becomes a concentrated burst of nutrition, a natural multivitamin from the sea. What's fascinating about niboshi is its dual purpose. It's both a preserved food and a seasoning foundation for Japanese cuisine. When steeped in water, these dried fish release a deep, savory broth known as dashi, the backbone of countless soups and stews. Its preservation turned culinary genius. Interestingly, The technique dates back hundreds of years to when refrigeration wasn't even a dream. Fishermen needed a way to keep their catch edible through harsh winters and long voyages, and boiling, followed by drying, proved to be the perfect answer. Today, niboshi remains a staple in pantries across Japan, a humble reminder that simplicity and patience can outlast technology. And while most of us rely on freezers, the Japanese quietly keep the ocean alive on their shelves, one dried fish at a time. When summer humidity rolls through Japan, it brings both flavor and challenge. And that's where tsukudani comes in. This soy-based simmering method is as ingenious as it is delicious, turning perishable ingredients into long-lasting treasures through the simple power of soy sauce, sugar, and patience. Imagine small cuts of meat, fish, or even seaweed gently bubbling away in a dark glossy sauce. The mixture reduces slowly, infusing each piece with a deep umami flavor while driving out excess moisture, nature's oldest enemy of preservation. It's like bottling time itself in soy and sweetness. The result is food so rich and concentrated that it can last for weeks at room temperature, ready to flavor rice or accompany a humble bowl of porridge. I once tried making tsukudani at home, thinking it would be a peaceful kitchen project. Within an hour, the smell had my neighbors convinced I was running a secret soy sauce factory. The aroma is powerful, salty, savory, and utterly irresistible. But for the Japanese, that scent isn't just cooking, it's comfort. It means nourishment that will last. Of course, there's a catch. When simmering with soy sauce, balance is everything. Too much heat and you'll end up with a sticky, caramelized mess. Too little, and the liquid won't concentrate enough to preserve. That's why traditional cooks watch their pots like hawks, stirring gently as the mixture thickens to the perfect glaze. What's fascinating about tsukudani is how adaptable it is. Families make their own versions using local ingredients: sardines, beef, kelp, or mushrooms, each with its own personality. The soy and sugar work together to create a natural preservative, while a touch of mirin or sake deepens the flavor. Once cooled, it's packed into small jars and stored away, ready to revive any meal with a single spoonful. I like to think of tsukudani as Japan's version of edible resilience, a dish that transforms fragility into strength. It's not just a recipe. It's a reminder that patience, heat, and care can turn the simplest ingredients into something lasting. In a world of fast fixes and cold storage, tsukudani proves that slow, steady simmering can outlast even the harshest season. Smoking and fermenting fish is as traditional as it gets when it comes to food preservation, and the Japanese have perfected this age-old technique. It's all about removing moisture and sealing in flavor, which prevents bacteria growth and makes it last for months, even years. Imagine thick cuts of bonito slowly smoking over oak wood for days. Just like that, it's transformed into katsuobushi, one of Japan's most treasured ingredients. The process isn't just about preserving fish, it's an art form. The Japanese know exactly how to balance the right amount of smoke, heat, and time. They often hang the fish in special smokehouses or drying huts, allowing air and wood smoke to work their magic. With the right temperature and humidity, they achieve a perfectly hardened product that's ready to shave into flakes, brew into broth, or even gift to friends and family. What's fascinating is that this isn't just a way to keep fish edible. The dried and fermented katsuobushi can later be soaked or simmered to create dashi, the foundation of countless Japanese dishes. You could say the Japanese have their own version of flavor multitasking. I mean, who wouldn't want an ingredient that serves as both a preservative and a seasoning powerhouse? Talk about getting the most umami for your effort. And let's face it, nothing beats the satisfaction of catching that first whiff of smoky, savory katsuobushi rising from a bowl of soup. Ever had broth so rich it made instant noodles taste like gourmet dining? That's the magic at work. The flavor is deep, perfectly balanced, and utterly satisfying. You can almost feel the taste buds bowing in appreciation. It's not just about smoke, it's patience, craftsmanship, and generations of practice. The Japanese have turned fermentation into flavor, and flavor into tradition. Katsuobushi stands as a reminder that the simplest ingredients, treated with care and time, can become something extraordinary. It's culinary preservation at its finest. Smoky, complex, and timeless, just like the wisdom that keeps it alive. When you think about preserving meat, you might imagine refrigerators or vacuum-sealed bags. But the Japanese have taken this concept to a whole new level with hoshiniku, the art of air-drying meat. They've mastered a method that allows meat to develop rich flavor while staying safe to eat for months, all without the need for refrigeration. It's like having nature itself as your sous chef. No machines, no preservatives, just patience and wind. This process isn't just a rustic technique. It's a culinary craft that transforms simple cuts into delicacies. By carefully hanging meat in cool, well-ventilated spaces, they allow moisture to escape slowly, while enzymes work their magic, deepening the flavor. It's a practical approach to preservation, especially in regions with dry winters or mountain air. I remember watching a friend in Nagano prepare hoshiniku during the cold season. Strips of venison hung neatly by the window, gently swaying like quiet wind chimes. It looked simple, but the results were unforgettable. Savory, tender, and slightly sweet, like the taste of winter itself. Here's an interesting tidbit. Properly dried meat can last several months when stored in breathable cloth and kept away from moisture. That's longer than most people's gym memberships. It's hard to believe that while we're scrambling for freezer space, traditional households in Japan are hanging their future dinners right by the window, serene and confident that time will do the rest. The hoshiniku process is truly fascinating. The meat is first lightly seasoned, sometimes with salt, sake, or soy sauce, then hung to dry in a controlled breeze. Over several days, it loses water and gains character. The air acts as both guardian and artist, ensuring the meat stays preserved while developing a deep, umami-rich taste. It's like watching nature paint flavor into every fiber. I used to think drying meat was something only done in survival shows, but seeing it practiced with such care changed my perspective. The Japanese have turned hoshiniku into something elegant, a blend of science, patience, and respect for ingredients. It's not just about preservation. It's about mindfulness, family, and the quiet rhythm of tradition. While hoshiniku remains one of Japan's oldest preservation techniques, the ingenuity doesn't stop there. The next method takes fermentation to an entirely new level. When you hear the word narezushi, you might think of a fancy sushi bar trend, but let me tell you, this is the real deal. Narezushi is an ancient Japanese preservation method that predates modern sushi by centuries, combining fish, rice, and salt into a fermented masterpiece that can last for months, even years. It's the ancestor of what we now know as sushi, born out of necessity and perfected through time. Imagine storing fish not in a fridge, but buried in rice, slowly transforming through fermentation into something rich, tangy, and full of umami. I once thought I could try making a batch myself at home. I pictured a delicious, aged delicacy I could brag about. Spoiler alert, I ended up with a smell that could probably clear an entire room faster than wasabi. Meanwhile, the Japanese have mastered this ancient art. They've got it down to a science, each layer of fish and rice working together in harmony. What makes narezushi so remarkable isn't just how long it lasts, but how it improves with age. The rice ferments, the flavors deepen, and what starts as a simple preservation method becomes a culinary treasure. It's like nature's slow cooker, except it uses time, salt, and patience instead of heat. You could open a jar of narezushi after a year and still find it bursting with flavor. Just don't expect it to smell like roses. Fermentation has its own charm, and it's not for the faint of heart. Here's a fun fact. Properly fermented narezushi can stay edible for several years when stored in a cool place. That's longer than some people keep their New Year's resolutions. It's packed with protein, probiotics, and flavor, the kind that sticks with you, literally and figuratively. It might not make the menu at your neighborhood sushi joint, but trust me, if modern refrigeration ever disappeared, this would be Japan's culinary superhero. Some regions even add mountain vegetables or herbs to balance the taste, turning preservation into an art of patience and precision. I remember a chef once saying, "Narezushi teaches you to wait for flavor." That's the truth. It's slow, smelly, and spectacular. The Japanese know just the right balance between preservation and perfection, proving that sometimes the oldest ways still hold the deepest wisdom.